is where you buy your travel, this is where you buy your deodorant and your toothpaste and whatever else you need.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the students question how they can be put in a position where they have no refund at all.
Mm-hmm.
And the $1,500 is, I assume, $750 per semester. And to get nothing then leaves them in a situation where their most critical needs for them as individuals, and I'm not minimizing the value of tuition and housing and food, I'm not minimizing that, but on a personal level, which is actually included in the budget, how then does it end up in any case that you get no refund? Right. They don't understand that, because then something that was budgeted for this semester is now not even covered. And if you're, and I don't know, some students say they don't get the family contribution, or their parents don't qualify for the loans, or, and is that factored in, that they don't qualify for the loans? What happens if on that loan, on the budget you get, they don't qualify for the loans?
Right.
What happens to that?
Yeah.
But we are leaving students in a very precarious position that impacts their ability to do their work. Because, right. And so.
Yeah. So let me unpack a number of things, because this is one of the key and core questions that came up. And there's a lot there to unpack. So let me start at the back end and work forward. Part of the reason why I wanted to start with the federal guidelines in which Emory and GMS must live is, unfortunately and regretfully, there's no flexibility around those. That's black and white federal law. If we, so when I came to the program 5 years ago in 2007, one of the first things I did, are you guys familiar with the term SWOT analysis? It's a business term that's used to look at, do an overview of a program and understand where the problems, where you might have problems. I found out that we were out of compliance with federal law. we were about to get ourselves in some serious trouble, and our institutions. And what we were doing was sending scholars. At that time, we would send the student a check. You know, and if you're, this was just before your time, I guess, right? Yeah, just before your time. You were the first class where he's like, Mr. Griffith, give me that check. But we were sending scholars checks in excess of their aid. And what that meant was that if an institution was audited and they had given the student back that money, they could have lost all eligibility for federal aid for all of the students on campus. It could have gotten that serious. And what was increasingly happening was schools were contacting us and sending us back these checks for thousands upon thousands of dollars. So one of the first things I did was I said, we got to get back into compliance with federal law. We cannot do this. And so one of the reasons that we came up with that book, Understanding Your Gates Award, that all of you should have, is because what that meant was we had to explain to scholars how the scholarship worked, particularly with that family contribution piece. That's the first thing. The second, so if a family doesn't meet the loan eligibility for the family contribution, the first place that I would go to, do not stop at dining hall, anything, is to see Mr. Loops. Because there are other things that can be done around that. I'm not even sure what all of them are. He's the financially professional. Go see him. That's the first thing for that piece. So family contribution, once determined by the federal government or through verification, is always going to be fixed. And that has, again, it's nothing that either Emory or we can do without putting the institution at risk, and none of us is going to do that. The next piece then is, what does that mean in terms of scholars coming up with resources? So let's say you have a $2,000 family contribution. What that means is that all of your fixed costs are paid first. Right? Tuition, room, books, tuition, room, board, any built-in fees, all those kinds of things are paid first. Books and travel are variable cost, and those are paid last. And the assumption is that that $2,000 that the student is required to bring to the table will cover that. Now, why did I use the figure of $2,000? It's the
Work study?
Mm-mm.
AFC.
Nope. We talked about it earlier.
So UFC, I don't know.
What did you have to all of a sudden get a surprise about?
Student contribution.
Your health costs.
Oh, there you go.
The health costs. One of the things that we learned in the process of the conversation with Emory at this round is that they don't build in to the financial aid package when it's estimated earlier on the health costs, and it's about $2,000. So yes, you guys are showing up on campus, for those of you who aren't covered by your parents, and all of a sudden being presented by this bill for $2,000. And where am I going to get that money from? Emory did not know that we would cover it. So one of the first pieces of good news here and now forevermore while Gates Scholars are on campus, and certainly for anybody coming back next semester, for the freshmen who start, we are working with them to be able to cover that cost for all of you who are not under your parents. You'll still have to follow the process, do the guidelines for Emory, but Gates is going to cover that. And if it's more than $2,000, whatever it is that Emory builds in, we will cover that cost. So there won't be this $2,000 surprise anymore that you show up on campus in the fall and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God. All right.
But that's only for,
Pardon me?
and that's for those that with the health insurance.
Yes, that's with the health insurance. So that, money that you've saved during the summer, the expectation of your refund, because the health insurance is a fixed cost. It's a requirement for students here on campus to have health insurance. So it's not something that you can basically do without. We want you to have it. It is about your well-being. It is about the health. You just got to have health insurance. We'll cover it. We do that for every scholar and campuses across the country, and we make sure that folks know that. So the first triumph and the good news is, thank you, Jenny and Yosop. You guys got a health insurance covered, all right? And you can declare victory and go home with that.
With the $2,000 EFC that was mentioned and the $3,000 budgeted not billed costs that could generate a refund, in that example, putting health insurance aside, with the federal EFC of $2,000 and our costs, in that instance, the student couldn't expect a refund of $3,000 because $2,000 is already the federal EFC. But then if you compound that with another piece, which would be the direct costs, if outside of the traditional double that's budgeted for and into a single room that does cost more, then you're automatically cutting into that $1,000 that was remaining as that refund. And very quickly, in one situation with an EFC that's not zero, you could really run out of that eligibility for refund because of the increased direct bill cost and because of the federal EFC that exists.
So will you start telling students that they don't have that option unless they're willing to pay?
Yes.
Will they begin to know that?
That's going to be part of our entry communication for freshmen.
Okay.
Same kind of like with the Questbridge.
Right.
Well, what about the instance of an EFC of 0? Because with an EFC of 0, it would be assumed that health insurance inside that you would receive $3,300, but we know that that's not possible here. Or
I wouldn't say that on a blanket statement that we don't know it's possible here. We could look at it individually.
It's a question. It's more so of a question. So so it's possible to receive $3,300?
There's an annual cost.
I'd hate to say anything's possible, but it all comes down to how those numbers play out.
All right, well, it's to my understanding that it's not possible to have a 0 EFC at Emory.
That is not a zero federal.
I'm not sure.
A zero federal EFC is perfectly possible.
No, I'm talking about at Emory. Like, what is a $2,500? Like that number? What is that?
This is what we tried to, I think, address in the first conversation. That $2,500 minimum student contribution plays absolutely zero into the
Gates Scholar.
Yeah, no. That's okay.
Okay.
But so, with that in mind, having a 0 family contribution with the minimum student contribution, I'm not seeing how it would be possible to have a...
Gates and Williams Scholars don't have a minimum student contribution.
No, I'm not talking... I'm talking about... Okay, I'm just not clear of how it could be possible for a student to have a $3,300 refund when